everybody, and welcome back to Men's Day Out, India's only portal that covers gender stories, but from the other side. November 19 is celebrated as International Men's Day. It's another thing that United Nations chose to celebrate World Toilet Day on the same day. And we also saw certain brands celebrating women entrepreneurship on the same day. However, men often tell us that we don't need Men's Day, Brother's Day, Father's Day. We do our work and we don't expect anything in return. But should this day, if celebrated, be an event to thank the wonderful men in our lives for their contribution to family and society? Or it should become an opportunity for brands to constantly ridicule men and paint them all with the same brush as criminals? One such ad was put out by Mankind Pharma, which received sharp reactions. Let's debate. Joining with us on this debate today is somebody who needs no introduction, especially with the folks in Delhi. Please welcome RJ Ginnie. Thanks, Ginnie, for making it today.
Thank you. It's very strange to be interviewed instead of interviewed. Very, very strange indeed. But thank you for having me, Anand. It's really nice. And I hope I will say the right things.
No, of course. And you are somebody, in my personal opinion, I've always believed is, a very balanced RJ. You have always, taken up topics which have been different from popular opinions. And I think that's what makes, us chat with you today, especially in the month of International Men's Day. I saw your post on Instagram reacting very, very sharply to one of the ads which was put out by Mankind Pharma featuring Adil Hussain. You were very upset looking at that ad. What was your reaction and why did you react to it the way?
Yes. So the Mankind, the ad in question, it was International Men's Day. When you're celebrating a day, okay, keep the debate aside. Do we need a specific day to celebrate men, women, children, anything? Keep that aside. If you've got a day, let's celebrate the people on that day. Don't run them down. Okay, so this ad was about how terrible men can be. Now, nothing in this ad, and I'm putting it on record, none of the points that they make in this ad are wrong. We know of men who've done all of those things. But am I going to say that every man is like that? No, not necessarily. I also know women who've committed crimes, but we don't call all women or we don't paint them all with the same brush. But we very happily do it to the men. And on Men's Day, I thought that there are lots of issues that men have that nobody really talks about. And, whenever we talk about when we talk about equality, there should be equality in both the genders. So let's talk about problems that both the genders face. But to just paint men as bad on International Men's Day and not even hear their side of the story, I thought was very, very wrong. And it just gave me a very angry notion. And that's when I reacted very strongly to the ad, saying that at least on Men's Day, talk about problems that men face.
Right.
I think that's fair.
But when we are discussing this topic, I think at a macro level, what is your understanding of gender equality today? And especially when, people talk about being a feminist or, speaking about women empowerment, what is the definition of these terms today in 2021?
I think a lot of terms are very misused. Okay. Feminism for me, and I would call myself a staunch feminist, whether I call myself that or not, most people know me as one, is equality. I want to be equal. I want to be given the same opportunities. I want to be able to perform the same tasks. I want an equal pay. It's about equality. It's not that I am superior or a man is superior. It is about equality at the end of the day. And that's what I think is a debate that we are forgetting. So somewhere or the other, we make one gender more superior to the other. It's a fact during history over the past lots of years, men have been at a more superior place than women in terms of providing opportunities, in terms of rights, in terms of a lot of issues. But in 2021, I also see a lot of things changing. My problem with this entire conversation of constantly painting men bad is that first, it doesn't help the because you're alienating them and putting them in a corner. Secondly, there are genuine problems that men have that we should also discuss. Also, the third thing is that, and this is something that even the courts have said, that the problem with a lot of our legal system, for example, which is to a large extent now, thankfully, positioned more towards women, is that the women who really need it are not really getting access to it. And a lot of times, a lot of women who are taking men to court are being proven that they are wrong, and this is just a case of revenge of sorts, or to just prove a point. And I've had lots of cases like that. So are all women wrong? No. Are all men wrong? No. Are men violent? Yes. Are women at times vindictive? Yes. But again, you can't paint either of the genders with the same brush. So let's talk about all issues. I mean, I remember, and as when I became very conscious of this, there was this case, which had happened a couple of years ago, wherein there was this guy on a bike, and this girl had accused him and said that, he was making signs at me, he was trying to molest me, and all of us, including me, very honestly, went ahead and said it on radio that, oh, this guy is wrong. And then the cops caught him. And then conveniently, like is thrown in every other case, we forgot about the case. And 4 or 5 years later, I suddenly read about this guy who's been constantly fighting his case in the court. And it was ultimately proved that he was innocent. Now, what we had done was that we had painted him. We forgot about that. He lost his job. When I spoke to this guy, he told me about the hardships that his family went through, his parents went through. And that's when I realized that we were so wrong. And I think it was the first time when I called him on air and apologized to him. And we put out his story. And then a lot of men called up. And then you start hearing stories. The other day on International Men's Day, Anas, I was talking about this. And I remember a woman cop calling up. And she said, Ginnie, I'm going for a case in court right now. There's a girl in this company who wanted a different shift timing. They weren't giving it to her. She accused the manager of touching her inappropriately. She filed a case against him. We all know she's not telling the truth. We all know she's doing it just to get to a certain level. She says, I'm a cop. I've investigated the case. But I can't say it clearly. And we will have to go through the process. And she says, and now the girl has reached an agreement with the management where she says, okay, fine, you give me my timings and I'll withdraw the case. But in the meanwhile, that manager who had a family, who has kids, are all exposed to the fact that this guy got accused. And it's not something that you can take very lightly. I mean, if a police case is registered against you, or if your company is doing an inquiry against you, it's a huge amount of stress, tension for the entire family. And what does a child think of his dad who's accused like that? And later on, even if you come across as the court's given a clean chit, that thought is not going to go off. So these are also things that we need to talk about. And I think these aren't being talked about. Another third thing that I feel very strongly about, and I'm so sorry I'm taking about all of your time.
Please go ahead. We have all the right.
Is men in divorce cases, right? Especially when you talk about children and you talk about, the woman gets custody of a child, which is by law fair. But a lot of men lose access to their children completely. And a lot of them write to us so often saying, I just want to see my child. I just want to have this thing. And the cases are going on for so long. There are dowry cases. Not saying everywhere women are right. Not saying everywhere men are wrong. But you've got to look at cases individually. I think those are things that I feel very, very strongly about, that men should be also heard. And also the fourth thing that I feel I feel so strongly about this is, how we always have spoken about women have no options. And I don't want to compare men and women in this case, okay? But it's a fact that men also don't have so many options and choices. Today also, when a guy turns around, and I've seen this with nieces, nephews, when boys say they want to take arts, in 2021, parents are frowning upon it. कि arts क्यों लेना है तुम, commerce लो या science लो, ऐसे कैसे करोगे? I've seen colleagues and friends, honestly, and as for the first 5 years of my career, I had no clue where I was going, right? Possibly for the first 7 years. I was just wandering around, ki chalo isme, nahi to isme, and you're trying to figure that out. There was a pressure to work, yes, because in my house, there is no difference to earn a certain amount of money and you will live as per your money. But there was this whole pressure on me that I've seen on my cousins कि यार तुम्हें जल्दी MBA खत्म करना है फिर घर संभालना. You know, you have to be the bread earner of a family. There is an ad which talks about this. There's this ad on all hoardings these days where there's a man standing and he says, "I am the god for my family." I want to take down that hoarding and say you're not. Right? You're a member of the family. But that's what happens. We also leave the whole prospect of finances to men. We also leave the whole prospect of men could be having problems at work and they don't talk enough to their wives. But we don't talk about that, or the wives don't ask enough about that at times. We also need to look at these things. We also look at how the pressure is completely on a man to run a household. Even today, I have brilliant colleagues and I have heard them all laughingly say, "Oh, listen, our salary is ours. But it's his problem to run the house." You know, it's a joke, fine. Or our salary is used for like, I use my salary for only holidays and, you know, but the whole thing is his. And I have seen them take breaks in their career. Now, I have not seen many men have breaks in their career. Unless it's Corona that's come and they've lost jobs and then there's stress on them. But I don't think men have that choice. And should you not is a different issue, but there also the question of choices come. They don't have these options, right? So somewhere we should talk about them. And I think when we talk about men's issues, we should segregate them and not pit men against women. These are problems that men have and we should resolve them. There are problems that women have and we should resolve them. The problem comes that every time we're talking about any of these issues, we pit one against the other. So therefore, again, one has to come up over the other and that doesn't help. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
You know, whenever we try, like especially when I run this platform, which is about men, whenever we try to project the issues that they are facing, the most common argument we face from women or feminists is, "Oh, but how many men face it? Oh, you know, look at the problems that women are facing." But does that really justify that you should not be looking at the problems that the other gender is facing? That is not equality. And as you rightly said, you know, somewhere even in 2021, where we strive to achieve an ideal equal world, whenever it comes to being the provider of the home, by default, it is the man. As you rightly said, you know, today if a young boy, you know, a college going boy, he maybe wants to take up something which is in line with his hobby. I don't know how his parents are going to react, because they'll say, "Acha, isme, how much are you going to earn? How will you get married? You'll not get a good girl. You know, how will you run your house?" I mean, these are the issues.
And men, you have to hear this. तुम्हारा शादी नहीं होगा अगर तुम पैसा नहीं कमाएगा. And it's a fact, right?
You know, the most common thing कि बेटा अच्छी लड़की नहीं मिलेगी, अच्छी नौकरी नहीं होगी तो.
Exactly. And they also have to hear this. And Arnaz, I'll tell you something else. You know, when COVID happened, I got lots of banks calling me. Okay. And one of the reasons they said they were calling me was they wanted us to talk about this on air. A lot of people lost their lives during COVID, which was unfortunate at various levels. They said most of the men who've passed on, their families have no idea about their investments. They have no idea about their bank accounts. So they said that, please, can you announce on air that, you know, whoever's making financial decisions, they need to involve the women. At that point in time, I just said it like that. And then I've been thinking since then, and then I've been talking to people about it. A lot of women don't want to know about the finances, right? Leaving COVID aside, the investments are still a man's problem. Ask a lot of educated women, yeah, where are your investments? How are you investing? What are you investing in? They're like, "Oh, our husband takes care of it." Or, "Oh, my brother takes care of it." Or, "Oh, my father takes care of it." It's stupid. You need to be aware of your finances. But if you look at it from a man's perspective, you're giving him all of the burden without ever sharing it. And this is a problem of both men and women. The men need to talk about it. The women need to hear. But it's also a woman's equal responsibility to ask a man, ki bhai, whatever. And if I ask you, are you good at everything, Arnaz? Or are women good at everything? Or are men good at everything? The answer is going to be no. Individuals like individuals. Not all men are going to be good at finances. And maybe they need help. But how many husbands can say that in their house servants and say that, "Listen, I don't know how to handle finances. Can you enter?"
Absolutely.
Very few. And those are again things that we need to talk about. And that causes so much strife.
Sure. Since you spoke about taking up interest in your finances and stuff like that, I also want to draw your attention to like I remember in 1990s or early 2000, women genuinely there was times where women wanted to work, and maybe there were times where after marriage there was this condition, oh, why don't want to work, look at the house. Today, most of the cases which I get from very very short-lived marriages, the boys are telling me that voluntarily the girls are opting not to work. They are saying, okay, we are getting married to a guy who is earning a handsome salary. He has a job which involves a lot of travel. So why should I take up a job, which is going to tie me down for maybe 8 hours, 10 hours a day? So there are women today who voluntarily choose not to work. And when the marriage fails, the blame and, the entire consequences of that circumstance is put back on the man and his family. So that is also not fair. I mean, either you say that we are independent and, we would want to be like that even after marriage, or then perhaps if you're choosing not to do so, you have to kind of, get into the role, whichever suits you best, maybe even as a homemaker. There's no shame in doing that.
I don't quite agree with that a whole percent, because I'll tell you why, Anas. I also think that we base our perceptions on the people we see, right? The people who are in our circle. In a majority of cases today as well, there are lots of restrictions put on women. It's not just in the 90s, it's even today in 2021. Women in a lot of households are still not supposed to work. If you look at matrimonial ads currently also, you will see want a non-working girl for a very rich household. Okay, they don't want their women to work. Secondly, what happens is that if a man has a traveling job, it is the woman's problem to manage the house and the children. A lot of times, it's also not a choice that the woman has, ki I don't want to work. It's also because he's traveling, to ghar kaun dekhega, bachcho ko kaun dekhega, in-laws ko kaun dekhega. To a lot of time, that also adds on to the thing. Then thirdly, what happens is that if a woman, and this happened with again, a lot of women that I know, hum Delhi mein maan lo kaam karte hain. If my office is 6 o'clock, my house is in Gurgaon, I live in, say, I work in, say, Noida, the chances I will reach home by 9. It's not possible otherwise. 8:30, 9, लगेगा traffic. जितना आदमी को लगता है, उतना ही औरत को लगता है, उसके लिए helicopter तो चलेगा नहीं. But again, the bulk of the household is a woman's responsibility, right? Dinner making is still a woman's responsibility. A lot of men are chipping in, but still when they chip in, they like to believe that, "Arey, aaj humne khana banaya," which is still a big thing for them, right? In those circumstances, the pressure builds on the woman कि भाई क्या जरूरत है करने की? We will do this and you run the house. So in that case, it is a choice that a man and a woman are doing कि ठीक है, नहीं हो रहा कि तुम खाना कौन बनाएगा, बच्चों को कौन करेगा, there's not equal attention being given, so you do it. In those cases when the marriage breaks up, and I've had friends who did become homemakers. I have a friend recently who just is separating, and her thing is that she didn't work for the last 12, 15 years because she's been bringing up the kids, and the kids are now just entering their teens, etc. And now when they're separating, she doesn't have money in her account. No. There is no money that she's accumulated.
No.
So how does she bring up?
I agree with you. See, that is the problem. Our laws are so generic in nature that they review a marriage which has lasted for 10 years plus to a marriage which has lasted maybe only less than a year. It is not fair to compare a short-lived marriage where there are
different circumstances. Yeah.
And I completely agree with you. Wherever the time duration spent in a marriage with kids is considerable, I think the women must be, compensated or, at least ensured that they have a secured life because, after separation, obviously it is difficult for her to come back after so many years back into the professional life.
And our workforce is not very open to it.
Absolutely. But the thing is, the laws are designed in such a way that today, women are stepping out of marriage within 3 months, 6 months, 1 year and saying, oh, we don't want to live with you, but we don't want to give you a divorce and you keep giving us a monthly maintenance every month. These are the women who are educated, who are working, but because the law empowers them to a lifelong maintenance just because of the tag of being a married woman, I think that is, the problem where we are trying to address, that you can't have this hypocrisy of saying that we want equality. And then on the other hand, when it comes to rights, we want special or privileged rights. So I think that is the crux of the matter that, we try to address.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Like, I mean, at the beginning of this conversation, I remember saying that the courts have also brought into this issue that the women who actually need laws are not being able to use these laws, right? And a lot of women are taking advantage of these laws, and courts have been cognizant of the fact and are becoming more open. I mean, 10 years ago, they weren't so like एक ही तरीके का होता था, but now when lawyers or when judges turn around and say कि भाई नहीं ये गलत है, now let's do a reverse case on the girl. So slowly and steadily that will build, but unfortunately take time, Anas. I mean, laws, legal systems are like that they will take time to build. So, I mean, considering that we've all seen how it works. So again, I'm not going to pit that against each other. But motamoti, I don't think that men can be equal by putting women down, and women can be equal by putting men down. Equality means दोनों तराजू पे equal है, उसमें time लगेगा और different cases में different situations अभी भी होंगे ना. When we talk about rights or when you talk about legal rights, you have to also understand that there is also a semi-urban or a rural India जहाँ पर इतना option नहीं है, जहाँ पर लड़कियों के पास अभी भी option नहीं कि वो किससे शादी करते हैं. दिल्ली में लड़कियों के पास अभी भी option नहीं है, तो उसमें अगर 1 साल के अंदर भी शादी breakdown कर रही है, does every house have this? So therefore, legal rights or laws will take time to figure that out.
Absolutely.
But on the whole, yes, men's issues are.
We are such a vast and dynamic country that, and every
country, yeah,
and a location within a city is so different from each other that it is
absolutely it's completely
to apply, the same law to everybody.
Everybody, of course, and that is going to take time.
Absolutely. And before we end, Ginnie, I want you to tell us that as media, what should be the role, because you have the power to influence, you can actually drive the story. So whenever you come across a case where, the woman is narrating her side of the story, if you remember in Bengaluru in March, there was this Zomato case, which went viral, where the social media influencer, she put up a video with her nose, which was bleeding. And, it was a big issue. Now, whenever media comes across such issues, how do you think you should react, especially keeping in mind that there could be another side to the story, which is the man's side? And I think only if you hear both sides, it's fair, for you to kind of put out your conclusion or judgment on it. So what is your message to the media?
So, there's a saying in Hindi, दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता है. After that case where I had to apologize, I've realized, I don't want to react, or nobody should react to viral incidents, because it is becoming viral simply because it is one person's side of the story and it's sensational. So hold on for commenting. Secondly, I don't think Zomato was about men and women. It was about those who have power versus those who are delivering. Literally, it was about getting a service and being the service provider and who's right or wrong. I don't know if it was a men and women issue, but I've realized that even as a media, we should hold on before making judgments. We need to hear both sides of the case, but it's also very difficult because everything is so minute to minute to minute. So somewhere we'll all have to use our own structures of holding ourselves in, of reining ourselves in. There can't be anything that justifies it. But I don't know, you take it case by case and you try your level best to hear both sides of the story. And more importantly, even if it's a woman's side that you are believing, and let's face it, we're all human beings. If you tell me a story, if a man and a woman are telling me a story, there will be one story I believe more. It is always going to be the case. Is it necessarily that as a woman I should only believe a woman's story or a man's story? Not true. Different times. So I think the point is that we should hold back our judgment about a case till it's become very clear and not give judgments. Tough, but maybe that's what we'll need to do. And secondly, every case is going to be different. You can't generalize. And this is something that I want to say to everybody. Stop generalizing. That ad on Men's Day really irritated me at a massive level because we decided to paint every man as bad. And I'm sorry, every man cannot be bad, because if this society is still working, that means that every man is not bad. I also want to say that men need to have more confidence in themselves. On a really flippant side, Anas, every man, okay, whether it's a friend, whether it's a boyfriend, whether it's anybody, if I go and tell them, oh, I met this guy and this is what he said, and I'll be speaking happily about the guy, they'll all look at me and say, Ginnie, itni jaldi vishwas nahi karte. I'm like, no, but he seemed like a really nice guy. And they're like, Ginnie, koi aadmi acha nahi hota. So men need to have more confidence in the fact ki aadmi achhe hote hai. Please believe it. I really think that men should start talking more. I think one of the biggest issues is also that. Whether it's at home, whether it's an issue that you're having, whether it is, I still remember जब हम छोटे होते थे तो प्रगति मैदान के पास ना एड्स लगी हुई होती थी, अगर आप पत्नी से सताए गए हैं तो हमें कांटेक्ट करें. तो first stop using these words. And secondly, thankfully we've moved to that matter where nobody laughs at it now.
Yeah.
पहले तो पुलिस वाले भी हंस देते थे ना कि अरे तुम्हें पत्नी ने सताया है or whatever. So we moved ahead to that. But I think men need to talk. Men need to put out their perspective. If you have a problem, whether it's in your family, whether it's your wife, whether it's your career, if you start talking about it, maybe it'll help. Maybe it'll help all of us see your perspective. And it's only when you show perspective that the other person can see it. What is going on in your mind is not something that the other gender or anybody else will understand. So for all the men out there, please open up. Please have more faith. And of course, things will change. But yeah, not by putting down women and not by putting down men. Won't work otherwise.
Absolutely. No, you very rightly summed it up. And I think the only issue sometimes is that there is no platform for men the way there are n number of platforms for women. So
I am very glad you exist.
Remains. And I'm sure, I mean, you know, with people like you who have huge outreach, can motivate a lot of men to speak up and, you know, not go and take extreme steps if they are going through difficult situations.
No, please don't do that. Please speak up. And please, for every man out there, as much as we love our mothers, we love our dads. As much as we love our sisters, we love our brothers. As much as you love women, we love men. There can't be a world without men. We all realize it. We love you. Please speak up.
There can't be a world without men. There can't be a world without women. And I think we all are
there can't be a world
respective roles. I think that's a very nice way to sum it up.
Yes.
And any last word before we end the month of International Men's Day?
No, I think I've said everything. And happy Men's Day to you guys. Yeah. I mean, seriously, I think men need to be told a lot more often. Whether it's Men's Day. I mean, you know, Anas, I still remember my parents' birthday. My mom would get flowers and my dad didn't. And one day he asked me, why don't I get flowers? And that's when I realized that he looks forward to them as much. You know, we the other day, I think this is 3 days ago, I was giving some story on air. And I said, can you do me a favor and can you go and hug your dads? And I don't know how many men called me up and said, you know, how often we've hugged our mums, but we've never done that to our dads. So for all the men out there, please go and hug the men in your lives. I think they need hugs as much. And please, all of us need to tell each other that we like each other and we love each other. And Anas, thank you very much for having a platform which talks about men's issues. One of these days, you're coming on my show and telling me about how you started this platform. I think that's an interesting conversation. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ginnie, for joining us. And we'll let you go and get going with your work then. Thank you.
Thank you, Anas.